Hey there, I guess you see we have moved into the messy bun phase of our relationship. So I've been cleaning house and gardening and doing some stuff. So I had some thoughts that I wanted to go ahead and capture and not put that off and try to look perfect for you, because I am anything but perfect. So I think a lot of us want to put on airs and show a different side of us on Facebook or wherever we're putting pictures on social media that don't accurately portray who we are at home. So this is I think I'm day 2 hair. So fortunately I washed for yesterday for church, but some days you might get me day 4 hair. Now that I've got dry shampoo, I will do that. I will do it. I'll do day 4. Anywho, so what I wanted to talk about, our next chapter is your walking companion, and it's all about getting to know the one you're walking with. And before I even started putting some notes down, for that particular chapter, it crossed my mind that you've allowed me into your life to be your walking companion, and there's a lot you don't know about me. So I know I share a lot of stories throughout the book, so I don't plan to duplicate that, but I do want to just kind of give you some ideas. This crossed my mind early in the bed yesterday morning to approach things this way and share some things. But I have 2 sons, beautiful sons, both grown. I have a sweet, sweet little granddaughter. She is 3. I don't get to see her much. She lives 500 miles away. She calls me Nani. That's my name is Nani. And then I have a grandson, Aiden, on the way, and it's Ellie and Aiden. So he'll be born in probably late summer, early fall. Can't wait to go and be part of that journey. So anyway, so I've got them. And then I have a husband, Kelly. He is a tremendous husband. He does so much for me and takes care of me in so many ways and supports me in all that I do. And you know, this is the point where if you're in a bad relationship or a bad marriage, you'd be all jelly. You'd be like, oh, I wish I had a great husband. So I want to share that our journey has been so rocky over the years that we just celebrated our 26th anniversary last week or week before? The 9th. So last week. And our first 12 years were really terrible. I mean, we just never made it to the we place. It was still him and me, you know, and we never made it to the we place where we gave up our rights to ourselves and our own happiness. And so we were miserable. Both of us off and on were miserable for about 12 years. During that time, it got bad enough that we did live apart twice. And I actually had divorce papers drawn up one time. I mean, it was really bad. And I'm sharing that to share this, that it is wonderful now. But I want you to see that there is hope. There's absolutely hope. If you're in a bad marriage, there's hope for you. There's hope for that marriage. And no matter what happens with that marriage, there's hope for you, especially as you become someone who's walking closer to Jesus, because no matter what the outcome of your marriage, your happiness is not going to be dependent on human love, but on the love that God has for you. So that's one thing I wanted to share, just so you know that there's hope out there. I have had terrible struggles with children as well, and I've done a lot right, I've done a lot wrong, and there have been really hard outcomes, especially with my oldest son. I share a little bit more about that in the book, that he got to the point where, you know, his struggles ended him in prison, not just county jail, which he did a couple of times, but I mean actual prison, and that was a horrific experience for him. It was something that weighed on my heart all day, every day, the evil and the vileness that is contained within the walls of a prison. It's just unimaginable for people who've never been part of it. So, but now he's the one that he has one baby and one on the way, and he's doing okay. He's doing better now than he ever has. He's older and more mature, and so I'm really proud of where he's at. So you need to know that if you have struggles with kids, there's hope for that too. So another thing I wanted to share, this came to mind after the last video, and I was going through editing some things, which, by the way, I'm doing my own editing. We're all contained at home. The man who, my videographer, who does such a great job with any of my bigger videos, he's just full on doing for his church, where they're still doing the online sermons, and they do worship online. So I wouldn't even, he's offered, but I would not even ask him to do these little videos. You know, it's just us two, it's just us hanging out. So you don't care if they're quality as he would make them. So I just don't let him see them because he'll pick them apart. But anyway, when I was editing the last one, something I said where I'm like, I'm the worst person, or I was the worst person you've ever known. And I was going to kind of correct that and say, well, I wasn't quite that bad. I mean, really, I was kind to people. I was so good to my parents and to my grandparents. And I've always, I'm a giver. So I was going to go undo that and think, well, I wasn't that bad. You know what? We all are that bad. And our standard is not to compare ourselves with one another. I mean, you could say, well, I wasn't near as bad as Lisa Heaton. But the truth is, your comparison is not to me. Our comparison is to how we are in light of the holiness of God, and none of us are holy enough to say, hey, that if we're gonna do this life on the scale system, that the good's gonna outweigh the bad. That's not how it works. It's only through Jesus that we are acceptable before God, and that's a fact. So anyway, I almost undid that, but I've thought better of it. I thought, I'm not going to undo that. Oh, the sermon yesterday, it was my first time back to church since all of this has gone on, and in person service. And so he was talking about the story of Joseph. And I think I've heard this expressed before, but just the way he put it so in your face yesterday, I loved it. But he said, you know what? When you're listening to this story, it was to the point where he was about to say, what you intended for evil, God is using for good. We were getting right to that point, and he said, you know what? I got to tell you something. You're not Joseph in this story. You're the brothers. You're the brothers who have sinned. You're the brothers who have done the wrong thing. And so don't ever put yourself in the position of Joseph, because Joseph represents Jesus in the story. And so that hit me yesterday, that when I was going to undo what I had said, I realized, no, I really did the things that I did. There are a lot of extenuating circumstances, and we all have that story. That's why God is so graceful towards us and so merciful. It's because there's a verse that says that He knows we are dust. He knows how fragile we are, and so rather than excusing anything that I've done in my life, rather than making excuses that, well, it was because of this person or that person, I own my part in the things that I've done. And doing that before God has given me more freedom to just own up, confess, and say, these are the things I did wrong. Now, I will say this, because I think this is going to be another place of hope for some of you, that if we do want to explain why I made so many of the bad decisions, because I've lived a life where bad things were done to me. For example, things happened as a little girl. It's probably enough said on that, but it just misshaped my way of thinking about a lot of things, especially about toward sexual encounters and the way I wanted to have love from men or whatever. So it did misshape me. So a lot of my mistakes they've kind of been an overflow of that, but they still are my mistakes to own. So I can't just say, well, it's because of this, this happening when I was a child. Were my mistakes maybe a byproduct of that? Yes. But did I know better? Yes. So I want to be able to explain to people that have really troubled pasts, I think we all have the same combination. Some things were done to you, and some things you've done to you. I've harmed myself more than probably anyone else, just in the decisions I made and the way I didn't respect myself or who I was enough to expect the best for myself. So I've made a lot of dumb decisions and let a lot of people treat me in ways that I shouldn't have. I'm sure you feel the same. I want you to know that there's hope for that woman. In looking back at her now, the Lord has given me such compassion for the woman who would make the kind of mistakes that I made. He's given me such compassion. He lets me see that deep inside I was shattered. When you think about how a rock hits a windshield, the glass is still in place, but there's just all the webbing where it's actually shattered. That was me inside, yet I put up such a great front. People didn't know that about me. I've always been a very strong and independent and bold, and I put forth this air about myself that I was just a great faker. I use that term in the book, that I was a faker. I when I started really getting serious about church, I put on my little twin sets, the little twin sweater sets, and I just did church, but I was still shattered inside. What it took for me to become whole again, to be that whole piece of glass rather than that shattered, webbed glass, it was through walking in an extremely intimate relationship with Jesus. I've learned to use the term the next to me Jesus. I'll use that in the book, that you have the next to you Jesus. He's not far. He's right there walking by your side. And it was through that relationship that little by little he mended and restored, and he placed inside of me the ability to let go of that old Lisa, that dead Lisa. I'm working on a book right now. I can't quote it, even though I wrote it. I can't quote it exactly. But one character is talking to me. He said, I know the old me is dead. He said, but I sure keep carrying his luggage. And you think about that. We do that. The old you is dead and has passed away. But sometimes we don't tell that old dead us that you're dead. You think, okay, I'm still living in that. When you're carrying the luggage, I think sometimes that represents two viewpoints. Either you're carrying the luggage of shame, which I did for a very long time, or you're carrying that luggage full of dead person clothes. Like I kept pulling out some clothes from that luggage and putting on dead Lisa's clothes and still acting like her. Even after I started walking with God a lot more seriously, I still had a season where I just fell away and I went and put on old Lisa's clothes and went and acted just like old Lisa. So there's two ways to view that. Are you carrying your old person's luggage, like Mary? Are you carrying old Mary's luggage? Are you doing that? So I want you to get to know me closer, where I'm telling more stories about myself, because I want those stories to give you hope. I want them to give you the sense that something, I've done it again. I do it every time, don't I? That you have the sense that that there's something better for you than what you've had so far. And I'm promising you, if you will move into this next to you Jesus, you can find this healing. You can find the same kind of healing I had, and hope, once again, in your marriage. Whether or not you have a healed and restored marriage, you can have the strength to endure whatever does happen with that marriage when Jesus is walking next to you. So I'm going to actually go into the Your Walking Companion chapter next. I'm just doing those segments, so I'm going to kind of close down what we're doing now and move into that. But I wanted to, as I said in the beginning, I wanted to let you know a little bit about me as your walking companion, because you need to know that you're not alone and there is hope. So I hope this has helped a little bit. I might give a little bit more information on some of those topics once I go back and read this. I know there were some things this morning that I wanted to cover, and I wanted to make sure that I've gotten them all. So anyway, thanks for bearing with me on this personal note, and then we'll get right back into the main portion of the lesson next time. Thanks. Bye. Hey, we are moving into the next chapter, which is called Your Walking Companion. I'm not sure that I'll be able to move forward very well. My little pup is restless. She is Zoe. Actually, we never call her Zoe. We call her either Poe or Popey. I don't know how we got there, but it's just been a progression. So I can't believe I didn't tell you about her yesterday. She is my sweet little pup. If I'm in this seat, most likely she's in my lap. So anyway, so that's a big part of my life, and she is 14, so we are very near to what we call going off to college. She has kidney failure and some other health issues, so we're just trying to love on her and keep her comfortable. But anyway, this is my favorite child. We won't tell my other kids that. They know that. This is my favorite child. So that's Zoe. I won't lift her up because it'll just get her going. I will insert a picture of former Zoe here when she was fluffy and cute. She has recently lost so much of her hair and gone blind and deaf, and so anyway, Popey has a whole lot of problems. So moving into this chapter, what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of tell you how it's laid out a little bit. There are only 3.5 pages to read, so there's not a whole lot of content there, but there are 4 pages of what I have labeled as the facets of God. And what I mean by that is that whatever your need, God has a facet of himself to meet that need. So I've got it segmented in some headers, and obviously this is not even scratching the surface of who God is, but there are some that say that you can approach God as your Father, or walk with Jesus as your beloved, fall before Jesus the King, meet with the wonderful counselor, pursue the Prince of Peace, seek the great physician. So depending on what your need, there is a facet of who God is that's there to meet that need. I'm going to read just a little something from the beginning of this chapter. In the early years of my faith walk, I knew the Sunday Jesus, the one others knew and told me about. I believed in a faraway God the Father. I lived my daily life neglecting the companionship of the Holy Spirit. So I'll share a little secret here with you that didn't work out very well. Not at all. My life as a believer was just as messy as before I even tried to walk with God. I'll interject this. I did know God from an early age and put my faith in Jesus at a much earlier age, but it was well into adulthood before I put forth the effort and really decided that I wanted to walk with God. So that just to clarify. So I shared with you a whole lot of my messy yesterday. It's like 3 different elements, especially my marriage, the shame that I've always walked under, and some of my parenting woes, some of my parenting failures. So what I want to do is share, how did those things turn around? How did these facets of God become relevant for these different situations? And one of my favorite, I love to share this story, but in this list of facets of who God is, these are personalized, meaning when you read them, it's not me saying this is you saying this. He is my dad, whom I can ask for anything, one who will only give me what's best. There was a long period of time that I would pray the prayer, Lord, get me out of this marriage. But, I learned in hindsight that, we're told in Romans that the Holy Spirit intercedes for us and prays for us. So all that time I was praying, get me out of this marriage. The Spirit was praying, Father, save this marriage. And He did save the marriage. I'll share one. This is what I love about the story of our marriage. This is a verse in John 21. Or verse is just a story there where Jesus is talking to Peter, and so Peter said to Jesus, Lord, what about this man? See, Jesus had just told Peter how, hey, this is the death you're going to suffer for me. So like we all do, Peter looked over at John. He's like, but what about him? And see, I used to do that, like in my quiet time, in my prayer time, whatever was going on with my husband and myself in our marriage, I was constantly tattling. Well, he's done this and he said that, and I was constantly tattling. The Lord used this set of verses to give me an entirely different perspective. Jesus says, if I want him to remain until I come, what is that to you? You follow me. What the Lord just planted in my heart through these verses is that stop tattling on him. You follow me. What are you doing? How are you behaving? So this went on for months and months and months, that the Lord was just showing me, no matter what was going on with Kelly, that I had to be right in walking in my relationship with God. So if something hurt me or bothered me, rather than retaliate, I was just supposed to respond kindly and then take that to the Lord. So it took a long time, but I will say that it ended a lot of our conflict, because instead of my reacting to something my husband said, I began to respond kinder, and he somehow, it was this miracle of how God operates through my actions and reactions being better. His became the same way. I don't know. It was a miracle of how things worked out in our marriage. There's absolutely no doubt. We were given a miracle. So I did, because my heart breaks for those when the marriage hasn't worked out or isn't working out. And I have been divorced. So I want to share another facet of an aspect or a facet of who Jesus can be in that situation. That if yours hasn't received the miracle that you've been praying for, if you're in a one-sided relationship where only you are investing in that marriage and someone else walks away, there's nothing you can do. Your hands are tied and your options are limited. But let's say this, if yours hasn't worked out, here's an aspect of who Jesus is. This Jesus died for my rescue. When I long for romantic love, I know there is no more romantic gesture or happily ever after than when the hero rides in to redeem me, his beloved. He is my ultimate love story. So I said in the earlier video, where if no matter what happens with your marriage or your relationship, if it doesn't work out as you want it to, this Jesus, this beloved, he will give you the ability to endure. He will be the one by your side. I called him the Sunday Jesus early in this chapter, and then in the earlier video, I called him the next to you Jesus. You have to get to the place in life where he is not the Sunday Jesus that other people tell you about. You have to get to know your walking companion, who he really is and who he wants to be to you. So that is the essence of this chapter. Okay, I mentioned the shame and how shattered I was. Here's one section here, how he showed me through Scripture what I meant to him and what he could do in my life. Neither shame nor condemnation has power over me, the one whom Jesus has made clean. I've referenced some verses there to back up that statement. No matter my history, he has made me white as snow through his sacrifice. So all those years that I carried the shame of who I used to be, it kept me quiet, because often I would think, well, if people only knew who I really was, they wouldn't receive from me. I still carry that. Here's a quick story, and I hope I've got time to interject this, but I just received a friend request from someone who knew the old me, and my first thoughts are, she knew the worst of me. And I planned to write her a little note and say, hey, thanks for friending me on Facebook, and I just want you to know that I know you knew the worst of me, but that's not who I am now. So that may give me that moment to at least just share why I'm different, why I'm not that broken woman that she used to know, and the decisions I made based on who I was then. She can see why am I different. So anyway, just kind of throw that in there. I also talked about my parenting issues and just Jesus as the Prince of Peace during the worst issues, worst times with my kids. These are some things. He is my hiding place and my refuge and my shelter. I can cast all my cares upon Jesus because he cares for me. So these are just some verses that you can go cling to. What I'm asking you to do, I did say please get some index cards. I want you to take time in this segment, and I'll write this out in your assignment, but I want you to look up some of these. If these are things that really ring true to you, look up some of these verses and write them on your index cards, because you have got to begin to rewrite the old corrupt data in your brain with how the world has programmed you to think. You have got to start putting in some truth of who he is and who he wants to be to you. So that's definitely something we will hopefully do through this next, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go through with fresh eyes. I'm in a brand new season of life. So the season I'm in now, I need God to be different to me than I did 5 years ago or 10 years ago. So I'm going to go through this assignment as well and make sure that I'm meeting God, the God who will and can meet my needs. I want to make sure that I'm putting myself before him again afresh and never resting on what he did for me in the past. So if you're a believer who's walked with the Lord for 20, 30, 50 years, don't rest on who he was to you yesterday. He's fresh and new this morning for you. So make sure you're meeting with the God of the need of your current season, if that makes any sense. Right now, this just came to mind. The portion where it talks about him being Jesus the King. This is something that's really stuck in me right now about becoming soldiers and training up soldiers, and how we can't be babes in the faith any longer. We're supposed to be growing up and being soldiers. Well, we report to this King right now through beginning this online ministry and reaching people in a different way. That's who I need right now to advise me. How do I do this? There's so many elements to this. How do I do this? What do I do next? What do I do now? So right now, Jesus as the King. This is kingdom business we're doing here. So it's got to be the King who's advising me. So you see how in this season he's exactly who I need him to be. He's right there and going to walk with me. He's no longer my Sunday Jesus. He is the Jesus who's in the midst of my day, the Jesus who's in the midst of my call, the Jesus who's still in the midst of my marriage, thankfully. So, okay, I've covered those 3 points that I really wanted to get back on, and I want to correct something I said in the earlier segment about the Joseph story. When the pastor said, you don't get to be Joseph in this story. Okay, symbolically that was representing Jesus and us. But can you learn from him and do as he did? Absolutely. Joseph took what his brothers intended for evil, and he saw how God used that for good. We can be Joseph at times to say, hey, this has happened to me, but look how God has used it. So I love video where I can do this after the fact, because it's easy as you get going to say things that you don't mean it in an exact certain way, but it's come out that way. So I love that I can correct that. So there's that. I want to make the final point, and this is something I said a little bit before, but the point is, he is the God of whatever you need. I don't know what your need is, but you know, he knows. And so this time, rather than go through a couple of different chapters, I'm just going to stick with this one, because I would like for you to truly invest time this over the week of your homework. I want you to really pursue these verses and find the ones that mean something to you. And I want you to really devote that time in prayer and writing notes, writing out what you do need from him. So anyway, I think that covers everything we need to on this segment. And I'll go back and review, and I'll make sure we have any kind of notes inserted, for your verses and that kind of thing. So thanks for being patient. Thanks for walking along this journey with me and letting me be part of your life. And so I hope this is meaning something to you. If it is, I would love for you to get in touch with me. Lisa@lisaheatonbooks.com. If you're doing this with a group of friends, let us know so we can pray for you. It really means a lot to know that what we're doing here is impacting someone. That's why we're doing it. We're not just doing this for the fun of it. We're doing it to make an impact on the kingdom at this unprecedented time in our history. So I really want to know if this is entering and impacting your life. Let us know. So I will see you soon. I will be making another video and moving into the next chapter. And stick with it. Do your assignment, and we love you. Thanks. Bye.